Everything is about to change for you. Let me say that again. Everything is about to change for you. I am speaking to all 12 zodiac signs, and I will break down what April 16th has in store for all of you later on. But before that, I need your full intention and energy. What I will say is this: it is your time to receive, and there is a certain magical shift incoming that you really need to prepare for expertly. So watch until the end, and I will show you exactly how. Today, April 16th, the universe stops and asks. The Sun meets Chiron in exact conjunction at 26 degrees Aries. What astrologers call a Chiron Cazimi, the rarest healing portal the calendar produces. The moment when the full light of conscious awareness is brought directly into contact with the deepest wound in the chart. Not to reopen it, not to make it worse, to finally, with the precision of a sun that is now at its most powerful in Aries, illuminate it completely. And the wound it is illuminating today is the one that taught you your worth was in your usefulness. That wound has an expiration date. It is today. Comment I'm about to receive below to activate the energetic channel of the intention. Now let me describe something to you, and you tell me how much of this lands. You remember other people's preferences and they forget yours. You track how people are feeling, and most of them do not track yours back. When something good happens to you, your first instinct is to minimize it, to make it smaller, to qualify it, to present it in a way that does not make anyone else feel uncomfortable by comparison. When someone offers to help you, your first instinct is to say you are fine. You are very rarely fine in the way you say you are fine. There is a specific internal architecture to the person who gives without receiving, and it runs deeper than behavior. It runs as a belief, a very old, very quiet belief that was installed before you had the language to question it or the awareness to refuse it. The belief goes like this: if I am useful enough, needed enough, indispensable enough, then I am safe. Then I belong. Then no one can take away what I need most. That is not a personality trait. That is a wound. Specifically, it is the Chiron in Aries wound. The one that has been moving through the collective since 2018. The one built on the most foundational question a human being can carry. Am I allowed to exist as I actually am? Without earning it, without proving it, without making myself so necessary that my removal would create a problem. You have been answering that question the hard way for a very long time. Today the answer changes. To understand what today is offering you, you need to understand who Chiron actually was, not the astrological shorthand, the myth, because the myth is where the real medicine lives. In Greek mythology, Chiron was not like the other centaurs, where they were wild and ruled by instinct and appetite. Chiron was the great teacher, the healer, the one who trained Achilles, who mentored Hercules, who held the knowledge of medicine, music, and prophecy. He was the wisest being of his kind, the most just, the most revered, and he could not heal himself. He carried an unhealable wound, a poisoned arrow that would never be removed, that caused him unrelenting pain for his entire existence. And it was precisely that wound, the open one, the permanent one, the one that never let him pretend he was beyond suffering, that gave him his extraordinary capacity to reach people who came to him broken. He did not heal others despite the wound. He healed them because of it. The symbol for Chiron in astrology is shaped like a key, not a sword, not a shield, a key. Because the function of Chiron is not to destroy the wound or to defend against it, it is to unlock what the wound has been keeping closed. What has been keeping closed in you for years, possibly for decades, is the permission to receive, to want without apology, to need without immediately converting the need into something you can justify by how much you have already given. Today the sun brings its full light to that lock, and the key turns. Let me give you the precise mechanics of today, because once you understand the actual structure of what is happening above you right now, the weight of it stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like information. The sun enters exact conjunction with Chiron at 26 degrees Aries at 18:09 in the morning. In traditional astrology, A Cazimi is when a planet enters the heart of the sun. Not just conjunction, but absorption. The most intimate possible union between two forces. The sun does not simply illuminate Chiron today. It holds it. And in that holding, the wound is not exposed in the way a harsh transit exposes something. It is seen, clearly, completely, and without the usual defenses that keep it operating below the level of conscious awareness. That distinction matters because there is a difference between a wound being triggered and a wound being witnessed. This is the latter. This is the sun saying, I see this. I have always seen this, and I am here now with enough light to let you see it too. Alongside this, Mars forms an exact sextile to Pluto in Aquarius today. This is not incidental. Mars in its home sign of Aries. At full power, direct, unimpeded, making a harmonious angle to Pluto, the planet of deep transformation and the conversion of pain into power. The Chiron healing today is not passive or contemplative. It has force behind it. Real, directed, Mars in Aries force. The kind that does not just acknowledge what needs to change, but provides the actual energy to begin moving differently. And then there is the context. None of this can be separated from. Tomorrow is Thursday's new moon. 7 planets in Aries. The most concentrated initiatory lunation in years. The wound that closes today is the wound that Thursday plants its seed into. What he received today determines the quality of ground that tomorrow's new moon inherits. You do not skip today to get to Thursday. Today is what makes Thursday real. Let me take you back to 2018, not because it was a dramatic year for most people, though for many it was, but because on April 17th, 2018, something entered Aries that has been there ever since. Working, slowly, on a specific category of wound that most people cannot name precisely because it is so close to the core of who they believe themselves to be. Chiron entered Aries in 2018 and has been moving through that sign for 8 years. 8 years of the wounded healer sitting directly in the sign of the self. The sign of I am, the sign that governs the most fundamental question a human being carries. Not what do I do, not what do I have, not what do others think of me, but simply, am I allowed to be who I actually am, without performance, without justification, without earning it first? For 8 years that question has been pressing itself against every area of life where the answer was still no, for the person who gives without receiving. And if you are still watching this, that is you. Chiron in Aries has been working on the precise wound underneath the giving, the wound that says your needs are secondary, that asking for what you want is an imposition, that the version of yourself that simply exists, not serving, not producing, not managing everyone else's experience, is somehow not enough to justify the space it takes. So that wound did not arrive in 28. Chiron in Aries simply turned the light on it, and for 8 years that light has been getting stronger, the wound getting more visible, the cost of continuing to run the old program getting harder to absorb. Today the sun stands at the exact degree where that 8-year process reaches its completion point. Not because the wound disappears, because today you finally see it clearly enough to choose something different. I want to name something precisely, because it has been running in you without a name for long enough. I call it the giving wound. It is the specific wound that disguises itself as a virtue. From the outside, and often from the inside too, it looks like generosity. It looks like strengthest. It looks like love. And it produces real things, real connection, real impact, real moments of genuine beauty created by someone whose capacity to show up for other people is extraordinary and true. But underneath all of that, it is running a program of self-abandonment, so well constructed that the person living inside it rarely recognizes it as abandonment at all. It feels like choice. It feels like values. It feels like simply being the kind of person who gives. Here is how you know the difference between genuine generosity and the giving wound. Genuine generosity comes from fullness. It gives because it has something to give, and the giving feels like an expression of that abundance. It does not keep score, because it does not need to. It does not quietly resent, because the giving does not cost it anything it was not willing to spend. The giving wound gives from depletion. It gives because stopping feels dangerous, because the fear underneath the giving, vague, old, enormous, is that without the usefulness, without the indispensability, without the constant forward motion of giving outward, something essential will be taken away: belonging, love, safety, the right to be here. That fear is not the truth about you. It was a lesson taught to you by people who were themselves too wounded to do it differently, and it was never yours to carry permanently. What a healed version of you does is not stop giving. It starts receiving with the same wholehearted commitment it once reserved only for everyone else. Today, the universe is making that possible, not eventually. Now. Before the sign-by-sign activations, I want to give you something practical, because today is not a day for contemplation alone. Mars sextile Pluto does not support passive reflection. It supports movement. Directed, intentional, precise movement. So here are the 3 things receiving actually requires today. Not rituals, not ceremonies. 3 honest internal movements that the Sun Conjunct Chiron is making available right now, if you are willing to make them. The first thing, stop softening your needs into suggestions. You know exactly what this looks like in your life. The ask that becomes an apology before it leaves your mouth. The preference that gets qualified into a maybe. The want that gets dressed up as a practical consideration because wanting it for its own sake does not feel like sufficient justification. Today, just today, when a need surfaces, let it exist in its original form. Before the editing, before the managing of how it looks. Simply let it be what it is. The second thing, receive what is already being offered. There are people in your life who are trying to give to you right now. Gestures you are deflecting, help you are declining because accepting it would mean admitting you needed it. Appreciation you are minimizing because letting it land fully would require you to believe you deserved it. The wound that closes today is not primarily about what is coming. It is about what is already available that you have been refusing to let in. Start there. Start with what is already present and already waiting. The third thing, sit with the discomfort of being someone who receives. This is the hardest one, because for a person who has built their entire sense of self around giving, the shift to receiving does not just feel vulnerable. It feels like a loss of identity, like stepping out of the role that has defined you for so long you cannot quite picture who you are without it. You do not have to resolve that discomfort today. You just have to stop letting it be the reason you refuse what is yours. The Sun Conjunct Chiron does not land the same way in every chart. The wound being illuminated today, the specific pattern of giving that is ready to close, and the one practice that opens the receiving, it is different depending on where this conjunction falls in your life. Here is yours. Aries, the Cazimi is in your first house. Your identity. Your body. The core of who you are before anyone else's needs enter the picture. The wound closing today is the one that convinced you your existence had to be earned through constant forward motion. That stopping, receiving, resting without a productivity justification was somehow a failure of character. What receiving looks like for you today is the most counterintuitive thing Aries can do. It looks like stillness, your practice. Before this day ends, sit somewhere you love for 20 minutes and do nothing that serves anyone. Not as recovery, not as preparation for the next thing, simply as the act itself. Taurus. The conjunction activates your 12th house of hidden self and subconscious knowing. The wound here is the one you carry in silence. The need you decided long ago was too much to put on anyone else. The part of you that has been managing alone because asking felt like an imposition you could not justify. Receiving for you today is the act of letting someone know how you have actually been, not the edited version. The real one, your practice. Tell one trusted person one true thing about what you've been carrying. Then let their response arrive without immediately redirecting the conversation back to them. Gemini. Your 11th house of belonging and soul community is the active wound today. The specific closing is the pattern of performing the curated version of yourself in every social context, the one that is interesting and useful and never too much, while the unmanaged version waits quietly off stage, receiving today as being known rather than being impressive. Your practice. Show up as the unedited version of yourself in one interaction today. Notice who moves closer. That movement is the wound closing. Cancer. Jupiter in your sign amplifies the Chiron healing beyond any other sign today. The conjunction lands in your 10th house of public mission and purpose. The wound closing is the gap between what you have been doing and what your soul actually arrived here to build. A gap that has been widening quietly for years while you told yourself the timing was not right. Receiving today is allowing yourself to be seen for what you are actually building, not what is already finished. Your practice. Write one sentence that begins with the words, "What I am actually here to do is." Write the first answer, not the safe one, Leo. Your 9th house of expanded vision and what you believe you're allowed to want is the active territory today. The wound closing is the one that has been placing a ceiling on the size of your life. The deeply embedded belief that the version of the future you imagine privately is meant for other people, not for someone with your specific history and your specific starting point. Receiving today is desire without the immediate qualification. Your practice. Allow yourself to want what you actually want at its full size, not the version you explain to people. The actual want. Feel it without shrinking it. Virgo. The conjunction activates your 8th house of psychological depth and the unconscious agreements governing your surface life. The wound closing today is the one around reciprocity, the pattern of giving labor, energy, and emotional precision while telling yourself that asking for the same standard in return is asking for too much. Receiving today is naming an imbalance clearly to yourself without the usual softening. Your practice. Identify one dynamic where the exchange is structurally unequal and write it down in plain language. No qualifications, no generous interpretations of the other person's limitations, just the plain truth of what it actually costs you. Libra, the conjunction falls in your 7th house, the most personally activating placement in your entire chart for this transit. The wound closing today is the one Libra carries longest and admits to least, the pattern of disappearing into what other people need until what you need becomes almost impossible to locate even by yourself. Receiving today is not asking Libra to stop giving. It is asking you to give from a full cup rather than from the fear of what happens if you stop. Your practice. Hold one boundary today without explaining it, justifying it, or following it with an apology. Simply hold it. The discomfort you feel in that moment is the wound closing, Scorpio. Your 6th house of daily life, physical body, and the invisible infrastructure of how you actually spend your energy is the active wound today. What is closing is the pattern of operating at unsustainable depth and intensity while calling it commitment. The Scorpio speciality of running on fumes and telling no one, including yourself, how much it is actually costing. Receiving today is physical. It is rest without guilt. It is stopping before you have extracted every last unit of productivity from the day. Your practice. Stop 1 hour earlier than usual today. Do not replace it with anything useful. Let the stopping be the practice. Sagittarius. Your 5th house of authentic expression and unapologetic joy is the active wound today. The specific closing is the passion of editing your enthusiasm before it reaches other people, the long ago learned habit of making your aliveness smaller so the room does not have to work too hard to hold it. Receiving today is letting your actual size show, not the managed version, the real one. Your practice. Be enthusiastic today without monitoring the room's response. Let the excitement exist at its actual volume. That unmonitored expression is the wound closing. Capricorn, the conjunction activates your 4th house, the most private territory in your chart, the emotional foundation. The inner life that looks correct from the outside and feels like something entirely different from the inside. The wound closing today is the gap between those two realities. The life that appears in order and the life that actually feels like home. Receiving today is honesty with yourself about that gap, not as a problem to immediately solve, simply as a truth to finally acknowledge. Your practice. Ask yourself one question about your inner life that you have been carefully not asking because the answer requires something of you. Write it down. Let the honest answer stand. Aquarius, your third house of voice, communication, and the relationship between what you know privately and what you express publicly is activated today. The wound closing is the one around your own authority, the habit of qualifying your truth into something more palatable before it reaches the room, of softening the first version of what you actually think into a safer second version that will not make anyone uncomfortable. Receiving today is your truth arriving at full strength. Your practice. Say something true today that you would normally spend 3 edits softening. Say the first version, the one that arrived before the revision began. Pisces. The Sun conjunct Chiron lands in your second house of self-worth and what you believe you deserve to receive in this lifetime. The wound closing today is the one that has told you for years that spiritual depth and material abundance are somehow in tension. That truly evolved souls want for nothing, or that wanting tangible things is a less worthy desire than wanting transcendence. That is not wisdom. That is a wound disguised as philosophy. Receiving today is wanting something real and material without immediately translating that want into spiritual language to make it more acceptable. Your practice. Ask for something specific today, in plain words, without wrapping the request in apology or context or the 12 reasons you have earned the right to need it. Ask directly and let the answer arrive. If you are new here and you have not subscribed, do it now. Because what Thursday's new moon initiates builds directly on every single layer this week has been laying down. You do not want to arrive at the most concentrated lunation of the year without the full picture. Drop your zodiac sign in the comments below. This is for you, not the general you, not the broad audience of people who found an astrology video while scrolling through content that asks nothing of them. You, the one who has been giving for longer than anyone around you fully understands, the one who has been showing up, holding space, carrying weight, making things work, while quietly, in the moments no one sees, wondering when it becomes your turn. It is your turn, not eventually. Not after more giving, not once you have finally done enough to justify what you need and want and deserve. Now, today, on the day the sun holds Chiron in the heart of its light, and the 8-year wound that taught you your worth was in your usefulness reaches its completion point. Here is what changes today and does not change back. The wound does not have to be gone for your life to be different. It does not have to be fully healed, fully resolved, fully understood before you are allowed to begin receiving what has been waiting for you. The wound just has to stop being the reason you refuse it. That is the only shift today requires. Not a complete transformation. A single decision. The decision to stop converting every open hand into a reason to give rather than a reason to receive. Tomorrow's new moon arrives, and it finds you different from how you entered this week. Not fixed, not finished, different. The ground has been cleared, the wound has been witnessed, the key has turned in the lock. What Thursday plants in that ground is something that could not have grown in the soil from before, because before, the soil was full of the roots of the old program. The giving without receiving, the earning of the right to exist, the slow, quiet drain of a life running in one direction only. That program ends today. Not the safe version of that ending. Not the edited version made small enough for everyone around you to be comfortable with. The real one. You have been giving for a very long time. The universe has been watching every single moment of it, and today, with the sun at the heart of the wound, with Mars and Pluto aligned behind the healing, with Thursday's new moon 1 day away, it is saying something it has been building towards since 2018. Enough. You have given enough. You have earned nothing because there was never anything to earn. You were always allowed to receive. You were always allowed to want. You were always allowed to take up the space your life requires, without justifying the size of it to anyone. And if you were still here, still watching, I genuinely appreciate you more than you know. Drop your sign below. Thursday is close. It is your turn now. Receive it.